Welcome back to Made Toys Of, the show in which we go over the action figure history of various Transformers characters. And did you know that depression is at its most volatile during November, December, and January? We're talking about Scavenger today. Before we begin, a big thank you to Sinister Saltman, Dr. Shockwave M5G, Reptosaurus King 8494, Bix Rajowski, and Suck My Croc 3388. Thank you all so much for asking me to cover Scavenger. So, Scavenger, what is there to really say about him? For most of us, he's just a component of Devastator. The right arm, sure, but when you're in the same mix as Long Haul, Hook, Bone Crusher, and especially Scrapper, there was just never much to really glean from Scavenger. He's, I guess, important. He's able to use electromagnetic sensors in his shovel to find things when they're burrowing underground, but aside from that, there wasn't much to go off of in the G1 cartoon, until you look at his character sheet. Scavenger is depressed. He suffers from intense self-esteem issues, to the point where he finds himself to be a total waste of space. Because he loves being a part of the Constructicons, he constantly is trying to prove that he is worth giving a chance to. He does everything he can to show that he should be a part of the team, but that need to prove himself actually leads to him often being an issue with the Constructicons. Things are done too quickly and haphazardly because Scavenger tries to do them as quickly as possible because he's worried that if he works too slow, the other Constructicons will find a reason to replace him. In fact, this has become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Megatron actively wants to get rid of Scavenger, but doesn't because 1, he forms a very important part of Devastator, but 2, Scrapper constantly goes to bat for him. Scrapper does see that Scavenger has a ton of potential. It's just a shame that Scavenger doesn't see that in himself. Scavenger's original toy came out in 1985, and I honestly love his vehicle mode. I think the arm is very well proportioned, and it actually has a couple of hinges of articulation, and overall, the canopy and treads of the vehicle look solid. In robot mode, Scavenger is a little bit more rough. He's a very lanky boy with odd-looking arms, but his head sculpt and general design are solid enough. The Constructicons are all very nice little robots, more similar to GoBots than the Transformers of the day, and it's a big reason as to why I love the 6 of them so much. They're just fun little toys to fiddle around with, and Scavenger more than holds up that end of the bargain, especially when he forms the arm of Devastator, and you realize that he's actually a pretty decent transformation overall. Even if his robot mode suffers a bit, he has one of the more interesting and fun conversions amongst any of the Constructicons. And for some people, he very well might be the best toy out of this original 6. That same year, you'd be able to get the Devastator gift set, both in Hasbro markets and Takara Tomy markets. What's really interesting to me is the fact that the Constructicons have some of the most international variants of any Transformer. In this same year, you could have gotten the Milton Bradley Constructicons that would have had a distinct shade of green. You'd have been able to get the Justra Constructicons, where they all would have been yellow, but still have the components to make Devastator. And then finally, there would have been the GIG Italian release of the Devastator gift set, and these guys are the most similar to the American release, with just some extra paint on their treads to give them a darker purple. To bring a massive 1985 to a close, Scavenger would have had a decoy figure in the Destron Hero Collection 22 multi-pack. In 1986, the Constructicons would have been reissued in both US markets and European markets, though this time it was just the individual figures and not the Devastator gift set. In 1987, Hasbro would have brought over the decoys, and you could have found a decoy Scavenger in the Throttlebots, with the Stunticons, with the Combaticons, and with the Terrorcons. In 1992, there would have been a re-release of the European Constructicons, this time with them all being in yellow, and with no pieces for Devastator. Later that year would be a very similar looking bot, as the G2 Devastator would have put all the Constructicons in yellow with purple as the secondary color. It's very similar to the European release, but of course they actually came with the pieces to build up Devastator. Just a year later in 1993, you could have gotten the KB Toys exclusive G2 Devastator, and this is the one that you would typically think of when it comes to G2 Devi with the darker orange. With G2 wrapped up, it was time for a lot of the Constructicons to go on hiatus, but Scavenger actually continued to get work. He returned in 1998 as the Mega Transmetal Scavenger. Now I do want to point out, this was at one point supposed to be a new form for Inferno, but when Inferno began to shelf warm, you had Hasbro give the new name of Scavenger, and unfortunately Scavenger also shelf warmed. It was hard to move this mechanical ant, which is a shame because I think this is one of the best toys in all of Beast Wars. The robot mode is amazing looking, especially that head. Look at how demonic he looks. And with the shiny blue abdomen with the red limbs, the massive drills for hands, that Glasgow grin, an incredible transformation that gives you a really nice looking ant mode, and a sick ass drill tank. Here's the thing, a lot of the Transmetals, their third mode were kind of hokey. Oh wow, Cheetor sprouts rockets from his hips. But a few of them actually went for it and tried to make a distinct third mode, and this is one of them. I would go so far as to call this one more of a triple changer than a normal Transmetal because it gives you such a unique looking beast. Now the ant's legs forming the overall canopy of the drill vehicle was a nice touch. The problem is that means that the legs had to stick around for the robot mode, and that's where we get a lot of kibble. If there is a problem with this toy, it's that the bug legs become incredibly unruly. They constantly clash into each other, and it's hard to get Scavenger in a good dynamic pose when those legs are always poking him in the face. And weirdly enough, you might think that he'd be top heavy, but those tiny feet do a great job at holding him up. Scavenger's center of gravity is incredibly well done, and as a result, even the legs can't throw him off his balance all that easily. It's funny, this toy is able to escape a lot of the issues of the Transmetals, just to have an issue that plagued the entire Beast Wars line with all of that extra kibble, but I would still call it one of the better toys. One of the best, even. I'll tell you what's even crazier. Scavenger was back for Beast Machines. In 2000, you could have gone a basic class drone, and Scavenger actually looks pretty cool. In robot mode, he doesn't have that much articulation and the colors are a bit drab, but when he transforms, look at how cute he is. He looks like a mascot for Truckosaurus. I love it. 2002 was going to be a massive year for Scavenger, but let's start off pretty small with the Robots in Disguise Scavenger. Just a redeco of the Beast Machines guy, but I do really enjoy the colors here. But no, the big deal for Scavenger this year, as well as my introduction to the name, was his role in Transformers Armada. Scavenger was an ancient warrior, a teacher, someone who actually taught Optimus how to fight, and he had spent the remainder of the war as a mercenary, taking jobs for both the Autobots and the Decepticons. On Earth, he was able to disguise himself and essentially watch the war unfold until he decided to step in and aid the Autobots. It took a long time for the Autobots to warm up to him, especially because Scavenger made it very clear he wasn't here out of loyalty or honor. He was here because his pride as a teacher rested on his main pupil winning the war. Had Optimus not been his student, Scavenger would have had no reason to side with the Autobots on Earth. But since he was here, he decided he might as well take on another student, even if Hotshot wasn't particularly looking for a teacher at that time. The two of them would often butt heads, and Scavenger was more than happy to beat Hotshot down. But Scavenger would also be the first person to say that Hotshot did a good job. And most importantly, when Hotshot took up the role of leadership of the Autobots after Optimus Prime's death, Scavenger was the first one to accept him as the new boss. Scavenger was always a bit of a grump and a curmudgeon, and he didn't have that much in the way of honor, but at the very least he did appreciate those who he taught. His toy is really fascinating too. So you should know, it is a massive gimmick figure, and as a result, it's hard to get a good working Scavenger these days. But the whole point is that he can stand up and walk by himself. Those purple hinges on his hips going down to his knees, that's so that he can march forward. The transformation is simple as a result, but still gives you a really nice looking vehicle mode. Seriously, he took a little bit from Bone Crusher, a little bit from Scrapper, but was able to become one of the more unique construction vehicles we've ever had in Transformers. When you pair him up with his Minicom partner, he's actually able to grind things up in the back. And of course, he's able to walk in robot mode, and if you just have him standing still, he looks exactly like he does in the cartoon. 2003 would bring some Chotsky Scavengers way. For one, you'd be able to get the Super Collection figure of him in Takara Tomy markets. Not only would you be able to get him in his proper anime colors, but you'd also be able to get a Chase pewter version. This one might be cheating, but there is also the Micromaster Digger. In Takara Tomy markets, Six Builder was re-released in individual boxes, but a number of the characters were renamed to reflect their counterparts in Devastator. So, Digger is meant to be the smaller version of Scavenger. As if to prove my point, 1 year later in 2004, the Universe line would just name Digger Scavenger, making it very clear that that was the intended homage. You'd be able to get that same Micromaster Scavenger in the Energon toy line, but only in Europe. 2006 would give us a very odd boy. You see, we would get a purple and green repaint of the 2001 Robots in Disguise Grimlock. This Scavenger is great looking, by the way. I adore how this came out. But he was in a 2-pack with Bone Crusher. And the idea was we'd eventually get the entire build team recontextualized as Constructicons. There was going to be another 2-pack that would have given us Hightower and Long Haul, and that would have been effectively our RID 2001 Devastator. Unfortunately, Hightower and Long Haul never came out. This is a Scavenger that is fully capable of combining, but never got the rest of his team, and as a result is something of an orphaned combiner limb. Trust me, Devastators would only get weirder in 2007, because we would get the Classics Constructicon Devastator, a redeco of the Energon Constructicon Maximus. And not only is there no hook, but we now have a new guy named Hightower, and of course, Scavenger is the leader. He forms the torso of Devastator by himself, and is able to call the shots. This was actually reflected in the Classics comic continuity, where it's explicitly stated that Scrapper got demoted due to too many failures. I don't know, man. This feels weird. It feels like a bizarro timeline in which Scavenger is doing well and Scrapper is not. But, you know, maybe that Armada clout is what let Scavenger get this position. Listen, we still got a lot of Scavengers to talk about, and a whole lot of them are going to be parts of a Devastator. But before we get to the official Devastator onslaught, why don't we pump the brakes and go talk about third party? Because, look, there's just going to be a lot of Devastator in this video. It's part of the curse of being a Constructicon. Let's just go ahead and see what the other companies got up to during this time. The first third-party Scavenger I would have come across was from the TFC Hercules set. And I've always enjoyed how these Constructicons came out. They're a little bit of IDW, but really it was just TFC doing their own thing, giving their own version of a Classics take, modernizing the designs. And for a long time, this was a fan favorite set, and are easily some of the best Constructicons to have on a Classic shelf nowadays. DX9 Hulky would have given you one of the earliest Legend Scale Scavengers, and again, he looks great, way more cartoon accurate, and for Legend Scale of the day, this would have been a standout. Make Toys did Green Giant and would have given us yet another Classics-esh version of Scavenger. He is a lot more heavy-duty looking here, like this is a bruiser of a Scavenger. I don't really know how I feel about him, but he's definitely unique, and I'm sure for someone out there, this must be a top-tier design for Scavenger. Oh, good God, the Generation Toy Scavenger feels so good. Generation Toy, just gave us some amazing chonky feeling figures. And again, very IDW flavored, these bots. But I love the entire set. I would love to get them all someday, but they are massive and would take up a ton of space just by themselves. Toy World Scavenger's a bit rough. I'm sorry, I just can't get into Toy World. They're so finicky, they're so flaky, they're so fragile. Scavenger's fine, he's definitely a lot better than Scrapper, but there's just something not really hitting with me here. I just wish he was a little bit more durable. Mecha Invasion did Giant Legion and gave all the Constructicons radically new looks. I definitely enjoy Scavenger. He's not my favorite, but he is one of the better designs. And I hear he's one of the better toys too, which is great. And now, Fans Toys! Look, you know the drill by now. They're the most cartoon accurate, they look the best, they got the best paint and ratchet joints. But the transformation is a bit of a nightmare, but at the same time, once all the Constructicons are out, you can have a proper Fans Toys Devastator. I just don't like how these guys look. They're way too puffy, and the articulation's nice, but it's also limited to just how boxy their designs are. Scavenger is impressive, but I think we've had much better looks at a Masterpiece-style Constructicon team from other companies. I mean, look at X-Transbot Scavenger. A lot more slim. Now, granted, not as cartoon accurate, but a lot more accurate to how you remember the cartoon. If that doesn't make any sense, let me explain. You usually don't actually remember what something looks like. You remember how it made you feel, and that can modify how it appeared in your head. It's the reason why a lot of people have a hard time actually describing what Darth Vader's helmet looks like. It's because you're always going to have an emotional component to it. And I think that going screen accurate for the Sunbow designs is actually a bit of a disservice, because nowadays, most of us have a very different idea as to what those characters look like because of the emotions we had wrapped around them. That's why I would appreciate the X-Transbot Scavenger over the Fans Toy Scavenger. There's also going to be the MMC Scavenger, who looks very cool, and he's going to be an all built-in combiner, but I do think he's just a bit rough. Admittedly, when you do all built-in, you're going to have some issues with the actual combiner pieces because there's more compromises that have to be made, but this is a very impressive toy from an engineering level. We're going all the way down to Legend scale, and we can say hello to the Lucky Cat Scavenger. He looks pretty cool. Kind of reminds me of Dreamwave. Jesus Christ, have you seen the New Age Constructicons? Those are literally some of the best looking Legends toys I've ever seen. And Scavenger looks amazing. He comes with the horn, for God's sake. All Scavengers should come with the horn. Magic Square has also done a very solid lineup of Constructicons. To be fair, they're not quite as impressive from an engineering level, but they're much more playable and have a much better feeling plastic when it comes to posing as opposed to display. And then if you want to get even smaller, Dr. Wu is doing Micromaster Devastator, and they're all based on the Dreamwave War Within design. Going back up to the Masterpiece scale, we're going to get the O1 Studio Scavenger. O1 Studio, the people who gave us the Cell, the third-party Masterpiece Unicron, are going to be giving us radical redesigns of the Constructicons. And I love how they look so far. Incredibly solid, and taking on the soul of the TFC Hercules. And then there's Dreamstar. And I don't know what it is about Dreamstar, but I really love how their Constructicons look. They don't really look like any aesthetic we've had before. They're kind of similar to maybe War for Cybertron or Prime, I suppose. But it's an incredible looking lineup, and Scavenger more than holds his own. There's also the Devil Savior Scavenger, which is also Demolishor because they share the same character model. Nightmare. Nightmare. That's what this is. Horrible nightmare. If you want to learn to hate toys, get this figure. In fact, get the whole setup. Get Devastator. And then just find yourself staring at the wall and wondering where you went wrong with life. On that note, let's get back to official waters in 2009 and talk about Scavenger's return to cinema, even though he really didn't return. He pulled up with the other Constructicons, and then he formed Devastator's neck, and then he died. He wasn't around for the desert battle the way Scrapper was. There wasn't a copy of him, but he does share a design with Demolisher. So I suppose if you want, you could always just gaslight yourself into thinking that Optimus Prime gunned down Scavenger in the beginning of the movie. As limited as the screen time was, Scavenger does have a very unique design, and the first way you'd be able to get that design in toy form would have been in the Legends Class Easy Collection. This is a tiny version of that little Demolisher, but it's actually really impressive. I love how much they were able to hide in the vehicle mode, and then when he transforms, that captures the madness of the on-screen model very, very well. I still think this is one of the better versions of not only Scavenger, but all of the Constructicons and Revenge of the Fallen Devastator in general. At the very least, it was better than the Scavenger that came in the Supreme Combiner Class Devastator gift pack. Now, in vehicle mode, Scavenger is really cool. He's massive, a lot of good paint, articulation in his arm. He doesn't have a robot mode though. He literally just forms the torso of Devastator. That was the problem with the Supreme Combiner Class Devastator, is it was just a big gimmick figure. Yeah, it was cool that we got the individual construction equipment, but it would have been cool if we actually had the proper robot modes too, or at least an approximation of them. Does the Mega Power Bots count? I suppose. Scavenger is the torso of this Devastator, and when he falls face first, it kind of looks like the construction vehicles are all just hanging out. We'll end 2009 on a name dump, because Universe would have given us a Minicon 10 pack, and this wolf would have been named Scavenger. And what's really interesting is that the deco is an homage to Beast Wars Wolfang. There would have been more love given to Revenge of the Fallen Scavenger in 2010. You could have gotten the Constructicon Devastator Legends multi-pack in Hasbro markets. You also would have been able to get the Devastator Origin Colors set from Takara Tomy markets that would have given him a green deco. Truth be told, I actually prefer the Toys R Us version of that green Devastator. Things would never fully dry up, but there was definitely less Scavengers going forward starting in 2011. That's the year we've gotten the Encore Devastator gift set, which would have been the first reissue of the G1 Constructicons since the 90s, and Scavenger here is still very solid. In 2012, you could have gotten the Creon Destruction Site Devastator set that would have given you an individual Scavenger that could have then combined with the pieces from Drillbit, Hightower, and Scrapper to give you a Devastator. That's honestly really cool. You would have been able to get all of that again in the Autobot Assault Devastator pack that was basically just Devastator plus Ironhide. Rolling into 2013, you could have gotten the Devastator Anime Color version. This was Takara Tomy's attempt to make G1 Devastator a little more accurate to the cartoon. And Scavenger isn't the most changed, but he is definitely distinct from any version of the G1 Scavenger to come out before him. There is also the Micro Changer Scavenger that came in the Devastator pack, and he's really solid actually. Look at how well they got the Excavator. It was Revenge of the Fallen in 2014, as you could have gotten the Movie Advanced Series Devastator, but there would be no more pocket scale in 2015. That's when we would get Combiner Wars, and the crown jewel of the toy line was going to be the Titan Class Devastator. Now, in order to get one of the best official combiners we've ever had, that massive Devastator, the Constructicons all took compromises. Scrapper lost his elbows. Longhaul became very thick. Everyone was happy to get an extra backpack or lose a little bit of articulation to make Devastator work. Except for Scavenger. Scavenger very well might be the best individual bot in the entire Devastator gift set. His vehicle mode is a bit unpainted, I will grant you, but it's still solid enough. The transformation is a ton of fun, and then when Scavenger is in robot mode, he is fully articulated, he has good enough paint, more than most of the Constructicons, he has great proportions. He's the one that you could have pulled out of this gift set and put into individual packaging in mass retail and probably gotten people to buy. I think that's really impressive that Scavenger was able to get through the Devastator gift set with no real compromises. Even his backpack is screen accurate if you want to try to split hairs about it. I think that the Combiner Wars Constructicons are still an incredibly solid set, but I'm not gonna lie, a lot of the individual bots had to make changes. They had to deal with being lesser than a lot of the other Voyagers of the day. But not Scavenger. Scavenger was just solid. There was also the Unite Warrior Scavenger, which was the most cartoon accurate that this mold would ever become, but I don't know, for some reason he just doesn't click as well for me. Something about that head. The Constructicons would take a few years off until 2018, in which you'd be able to get the Walmart exclusive Devastator reissue. Scavenger here is just the G1 boy again, but still a very solid tiny toy. But in 2019, one of the largest official Scavengers of all time came out, with the Studio Series Constructicon Scavenger. Now, I know this could also be Demolishor, but on the box it says Scavenger, so we're gonna call him Scavenger. Overall, the toy is interesting. The problem is that he can't stand. That was an issue with Revenge of the Fallen Demolishor too, but at the very least, this one's probably gonna stand the test of time better. In 2020, Revenge of the Fallen Scavenger would get one last hurrah as a part of the Devastator gift set. We would get a blast from the friggin' past in 2023, because Generation Selects would give us Antagony, and I love Antagony. They are awesome. But you should know that if you got her, you'd also get the head of Scavenger from Beast Wars. And the whole reason for that is because Legacy Inferno was actually made with the ability to open up his chest and show off sculpting that looked like Scavenger's chest. It was something that the designers did in case they ever want to do the Scavenger remold. They never got around to it, but by including Scavenger's head with Antagony, you could always just say that this is your Generation Select Scavenger. Spiraling into 2024, we would get some of the cutest Scavengers ever, because Blocky's Galaxy version Scavenger came out, and I like him. Look at his little face, it's so sharp. Obviously, Scrapper is still my favorite, but the Constructicons overall had such a great run in the Galaxy version. That said, if you popped out at the Defender version, you would find even better Scavengers. There was, of course, the tiny robot mode Scavenger, who looks even cuter. Look at this little bruiser. But you'd also get his Scavenger vehicle. Scavenger vehicle was then able to combine with the other vehicle model kits and the Devastator kit to give us our first ever Blocky's Combiner. That brings us to 2025 and our most recent Scavenger, because in Studio Series 86, you were able to get Scavenger alongside all the other Constructicons at mass retail. The first time since G1 that they've all been released single-packed. Isn't that crazy? And I'll be honest, even though I would praise Combiner Wars Scavenger as being the best, I do kind of think that Studio Series Scavenger might be the worst. Now, don't get me wrong, still a really well done toy. It's just, his proportions are a little bit blockier and puffier here. Whereas the other SS86 Constructicons were all given some of the best toys they've ever had, it feels like the Scavenger figure is more just run-of-the-mill. I'm not saying that it's bad. Again, it's a very good toy. The transformation's a ton of fun. The vehicle mode looks great. The robot mode is well proportioned and well articulated. But there's something about the lower body specifically. He looks like he's wearing a diaper. And then the arms are a little bit hollow. It's kind of hard to escape that on any of the Constructicons, but for some reason, with Scavenger, it just stands out a little bit more. I'm sorry, I'm worried that this comes off like I'm nitpicking. I'm not. This is a good toy. I just find it interesting that the MVP of one Devastator becoming the weak link of another that's, I don't know, weird to me. And that's it. Scavenger has never been my favorite. I've made it very clear my favorite Constructicon is Scrapper. But if I were to rank all the Constructicons, Scavenger is probably down there with Bone Crusher. I just have no real affinity towards the character. But something about doing this video has made me realize a couple of things. One, I love his personality. I hate that we've never really seen it in fiction, but the idea of someone who tries so hard to prove that he deserves to be there just to make it harder for himself, that's heartbreaking. But moreover, I love the fact that out of everyone in the Decepticon army, Scrapper is the one that goes to bat for him. Scrapper is the one that convinces Megatron to keep him around. Megatron wants to cut Scavenger off Devastator, but can't because the Constructicons love him, because he's part of the family. I always gush about how I love the Constructicons are always there for one another, how they always have each other's backs. And I feel like a character like Scavenger shows that better than anyone. He's not the best in a fight, he has his own screw-ups and he slips up constantly, but that doesn't matter, because he's one of them, and they'll always be there for Scavenger. Even if they can't make him happy, they can make him a home, and that's what they've tried to do. And moreover, Scavenger has had a ton of success outside of G1. One of the best Beast Wars figures, one of the most iconic Bayverse designs, for better and for worse, and of course, his standout role in Armada, one of the best characters in the entire show. Scavenger as a name, as an identity, has been able to escape Devastator. It's funny, I think a lot of people assume that Bone Crusher was the breakout star of Devastator, but I kind of feel like the argument could be made that Scavenger has had far more success. He's definitely appeared in more continuities, he's had more toys across those continuities. Even though 2007 Bone Crusher was a standout for Bone Crusher, it was just one blip. Whereas Scavenger was able to get into the Beast era, the Unicron trilogy, the Bayverse alongside Bone Crusher. Scavenger has had a great run as a character, possibly the best out of any Constructicon. And for someone who has such a hard time believing that they're worthy, there's something beautiful about the fact that they're the character that kept coming back. But guys, I'll ask you, which was your favorite Scavenger? And is there a Scavenger you're trying to track down right now? If you would like to support me or the show, I'm on Patreon. $1 will allow you to get access to my Discord server, Moonbase 1. $5 will allow you to watch videos early. And $10 will make you a producer. You'll show up in every video I make from now on and be able to make direct Patreon requests to me. Thank you all so much for watching. And hey, we'll see what we get up to next time.